a great holiday season.
Merry Christmas.
John, good luck opening the schools, man.
Thanks, Sam.
And we're going to stay in the Zoom room where we have Jon Fernandez, the superintendent of the Guam Department of Education. As you all know, I don't even know why I had to give the title, but good morning, John.
Hi, good morning, Sabrina. Good morning, Andy. I was just listening intently to Sam's report. You know, everyone, I know that I've talked to a lot of people and they said, boy, you know, when all this settles down, I'm going to take that trip that I had been planning for, you know, I've been saving up for, I've been hoping to do one day, but you know, when we've gone through this period of time and you've been, you know, people have been unable to visit family or, you know, had to put that family vacation off that they might have been, you know, again, dreaming of for the last 3-4 years. And, you know, I think people are like, what is United going to do? Or when is that going to be safe enough for, you know, for short flights, for longer flights, just to get back to some level of normal. And then, of course, we certainly look forward to seeing our visitors come in and feel comfortable coming back to Guam to visit and to, you know, help enjoy their time here and as well as support our economy, because all of this goes hand in hand. I mean, you know, the schools opening, the economy reopening, but at the same time, making sure that we're safe enough to do so. It all has to work in tandem. So I'm really glad. I mean, we've had good conversations. You know, again, we know public health and the hospital all on the front lines, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes too, as it relates to other supports and services, you know, throughout the community, whether it's the nonprofit sector, you know, providing supports in partnership with others, the other agencies who have to, you know, do their work as well. And you know, every day and every chance I get, trying to circle back with Lieutenant Governor Tenorio to make sure that we're always kind of, you know, coordinated, because sometimes things are moving so fast that decisions are being made, but we still need to make sure that the message to the community is always the same, so the information is accurate and people don't get too anxious and uncertain when they hear different stories or different rumors or, you know, speculation out there. So it's been a tough, you know, obviously, you know, through this pandemic, it's been tough to do that, but I do appreciate, you know, the setting up these regular weekly, you know, Wednesday opportunities, because sometimes, you know, it might sound redundant because we've been working on what we've been working on for the last several months. But it is so important that if you have any new listeners or people with updated information, that they can continue to share it. And that hopefully, you know, as we continue to brief you through this, you know, morning's opportunity, that people will just, you know, be able to share the latest information directly from the source too, which is another opportunity for me to be able to speak to a lot of your listeners. So I just want to say, you know, we had a board meeting last night, December 15th. I know there were a lot of people who were looking at this meeting and saying, okay, we're going to find the decision. And last week we communicated that the final decision actually will come next week, December 22nd. We wanted to buy additional time to allow for, you know, a couple of things to take place. One was we really wanted to see and to learn from the governor what she was thinking in terms of the CAR score, you know, the CAR score going down and staying down below 5 after the last couple of weeks, and seeing what her thoughts were on relaxing the conditions and on the reopening of schools. And so we did have that opportunity to talk with her. This is Dr. Okada, President Christ, and myself on, you know, last Friday. And you know, we really wanted to give her some time to make some, you know, further assessment after we got through 2, you know, whole weeks of low numbers. And then the other thing is that we're gathering the registration for parents, and, you know, of students who want to come back to face-to-face. Need to ensure that they are informing their schools. We have a registration process going on today, and it ends on the 18th. And by the time we get to the end of December 18th, we should have updated numbers on who exactly is, you know, going to come back face to face when we finally get that opportunity. I think I mentioned before that when we were planning to start up in August, we had about 40%, just under 40% of our school population indicating that they would come back face to face. And we had organized ourselves to run that face-to-face instruction in 3 cohorts, which meant that 40% would be divided into 3 groups. So they're even smaller, you know, groups. and then they would be coming to school on an alternating basis. So it would be a combination of face-to-face instruction plus independent work that could be done at home. And in that way, we would be able to stay within the safety parameters, especially the requirement for 6-foot physical distancing. I really don't expect the numbers to be as high as what we received leading into August, because after we shut down in August, this community has gone through such a tremendous and really painful experience, I believe, with the surge and the number of hospitalizations and the rise in fatalities and all of that. And even though there's a light at the end of the tunnel that we can see with numbers going down and with the vaccination strategy being, starting to be shared, that it's still too early, I think, for many people to feel, comfortable returning. So I'm looking at maybe 30% of our students. We'll get the final numbers, but 30% is kind of my prediction. And that'll help us once we get those final registrations to organize and really finalize the plans for the school year. Now, the governor did seem that if everything goes, the way it's been going and the numbers are improving and they stay low, that she will, look to authorize us before the end of the month to reopen for face-to-face instruction, and would be looking at January 4th, as we've been talking about, January 4th as being the start date for the new semester. Now, once she decides that, and that's a really big decision, so, if something happens in the interim and numbers spike for some strange reason, or, they just don't feel comfortable, with the Christmas, season and observing what happens during that time, she may change her mind, but we recognize that that's a huge decision and it rests on her shoulders, and we're there to support her in making the right decision. But once she authorizes us to open, all of us, when I mean all of us, I mean, the GCC, UOG, the private schools, the charter schools, will all have the opportunity to determine just how and when we will open up for face-to-face instruction. So she's not going to give more detailed instruction beyond, I believe, this is when you can open, and here are the safety requirements that you need to adhere to, including physical distancing and so forth. So we appreciate that she's joining us in that planning. Public Health has provided us some draft guidelines for K-12 opening, so allowing all of the stakeholders to have an opportunity to weigh in and provide input into those guidelines. But most of those guidelines right now seem to be in line with what we've been doing this entire time, which is adhering to the CDC requirements and ensuring that we have the necessary science and expertise and updated information to back our strategy. Mm-hmm. We talked about risk assessment, and I know people have been kind of looking at the CAR score and wondering how to interpret it. And I think I mentioned to our stakeholders in various meetings that we've done our homework looking at the risk assessment that we're doing at DOE, which is based on the CDC framework and the CAR score. And really, they do look at the same data. It's just, I think the biggest issue is that they're looking at a 7-day daily average, and we're looking at a 14-day trend. So what happens is that when you see the CAR score drop, there will be a lag in terms of our assessment catching up. But as we've gone through the last couple of weeks, we have seen that decline in our risk assessment right now. So as of yesterday, based on the 14-day positivity rate, which is one of the key indicators, we have dipped below 3% over the 14-day average, which puts us in the lowest risk category in terms of positivity. So that means that of all the tests that are being administered, less than 3% are coming up positive. In terms of the number of new cases, that's been coming down as well. That's going to be take a little bit more time to get us into a lower risk category. But we went from highest into the higher risk category, which is improvement, and then we're looking to get into the moderate risk category soon. But those numbers are dropping rapidly as well. So we're doing our homework. I want the community to know that we don't just take information and absorb it and spit it out. We look at, we question the doctors. We've asked about the positivity rates as they apply, as they apply to the different tests. We're looking at the hospitalization numbers because, those numbers all need to work together. If there's low positivity but high hospitalization, we're going to have to ask, more questions. But I just want to assure our teachers, our parents that, safety is our foremost concern in reopening schools, and we are going to make sure that that guides us in reopening. And at the same time, we know that a lot of our students, many of our at-risk students, many of our families do want to come back to face just to ensure their kids, don't fall back and get the services that they need at school. So it's a balancing act that's very difficult, but I think by next week we should have our plan finalized and make some of these final decisions as we head into the holiday, into the Christmas break, and then that'll give us a couple weeks to really ensure that everything's ready to go come January 4th, if that's the first date. For January 4th, I think I mentioned last week, January 4th would be, that week would actually be dedicated to training and updating the teachers and staff. So if we do open on the 4th, it's only going to be for teachers and staff for that first week. For those who are supposed to be at the school for face-to-face instruction, to come back, be trained in the safety protocols, the response procedures, the health monitoring, the contact tracing, just the basic adjustments to the facility to maintain physical distancing. All of those items will be addressed in that first week. And then we have a couple of options for opening, and we're thinking about how we proceed. One is to stagger the reopening so that we do elementary first and then secondary maybe a week or two later, or we do them all at once, on January 11th. So that's really dependent on a couple of factors, meaning we need to get that final registration number in, know exactly how many students are coming back. That will help us. And then also we have another conversation with Public Works just to finalize their busing operations. And one of my thoughts is that we might want to look at a staggered return, a phase-in approach, just to make sure that the buses are able to work that first week at least, and ensure that they have the time and procedures down to be able to not just transport kids under the new requirements, where they have physical distancing and staggered seating and so forth, but they have to build in time to sanitize the buses in between their runs. And that's something that we don't know yet, how long that will take and what the impact will be on the timing for them to pick up, to go on their next run. Usually the buses start off in the mornings. They pick up the high school students first, then they drop the high school students at school, and then they immediately go back they circle back and start their elementary school run. And, now that under the new procedures, they would have to, in between the high school and elementary school run, stop and make sure that the buses are sanitized completely for their new run, and then go pick up the next round of students, and then so on and so forth for middle school, and then also in the afternoons. So I think that's one of the moving parts that we're trying to make a recommendation on. But we do have another conversation with DPW to nail that down. So I'm happy. There's lots going on. I'm happy to take any questions. Right. I know there's probably a lot you're hearing from your listeners as well.
I wanted to follow up on the supplemental budget request. Okay. Is that still being submitted to the legislature, or has it been already?
We're actually, this is a really difficult, challenging time to talk about budget. But to your question, I think the plan is to introduce the supplemental budget to the legislature in January, and I think the plan, based on our discussion with the board, was to first make a determination about whether or not we are going to go into face-to-face instruction or not, because I think if we are shut down and continue to be shut down, then our budgetary needs are going to be much different than when the kids are back. Now that we're getting close to a final decision on reopening, that I think the board wanted to make that decision first and make sure then that we calculated the budgetary impacts and go to the legislature to get those supplemental resources in January. And that's I think that's how it will proceed. So we do have budget meetings that we have to go through in the next couple of weeks. And once that determination is made, we need to let the legislature know that these are some of the areas where we're going to need support. But again, there's a lot of other moving parts as well. We're starting to go through our budget process for the coming, for the next year. That starts this month. So starting on the 17th, which is tomorrow, we're going to be in several all-day meetings of, with our schools and principals about their needs for the following year. So that'll start. And of course, we have to finish that budget request by January. And at the same time, we're looking at the federal government activity and determining whether or not a stimulus funding will be made available, because that'll be very crucial to determining, a lot of the answers to our questions. One is will we get the resources and the relief that we'll need to make it through the next several months, knowing that when we come back in January, that's usually the time when there's another update on the revenue expectations for the government or for the island. And the last time I was, at this point of, kind of worry and concern was when the Trump tax cuts happened. The Trump tax cuts happened in December, and then January, they were immediately implemented. And we had to make a mid-year correction to our budget, which meant we had to make immediate cuts in the middle of a fiscal year. Mm-hmm. That was very tough to do, because we had to cut about $12 million right off the bat before we ended, I guess in the middle of the school year. And so we had a lot of work to do to make that happen. This year, we've already had our budget cut a further $15 million. And to have another mid-year cut on top of that is really going to be tough to manage. At the same time, we're trying to figure out how to support a return to face-to-face instruction. So we hope that by January, we'll have a clearer picture on what additional resources are needed to support face-to-face. We'll get an understanding of whether the federal government will be coming through with stimulus funding to support, these challenges, sports during these challenges, or alternatively, learn that there's some bad news on the horizon and we need to make some tough decisions. So, again, we want to wish everybody happy holidays. Don't think about these issues if you don't have to. But, I want to let our stakeholders know they are, we're thinking about it. We're doing our best to make sure we're prepared for any scenario so that we can, ensure that we minimize the impact on our kids and on our families and on our employees.
I wanted to ask about federal funds for the coronavirus response for GDOE. What are you tracking? What is the bulk of the money being spent on?
The bulk of the money. So again, we have about $42 million, and about 30 million of that goes to GDOE, and the remainder of that is kind of allocated to be able to provide support for private and charter schools. So the biggest chunk of the change is actually going to support distance learning as well as our PPEs. So right now, I've been meeting on a weekly basis with our procurement team and our program team to make sure things are moving quickly and smoothly as much as possible. And of course, early on in the school year, it was a bit frustrating because there were a lot of hoops that we all had to go through to get the necessary approvals, to get the funding drawn down and to be able to be allocated and utilized. So, but we were able to go ahead and purchase the PPEs, the face masks, the hand sanitizers, the cleaning supplies. We are also, I know we're also working to provide the electrostatic, sprayers and other things that are that some of them are still in the queue, but most of these have been distributed. The items that are necessary to comply with CDC guidance, we've put in place. We have some further items that are being procured that are still coming in. These are issues due to supply and the availability of these supplies, but we are putting in additional hand washing stations and bottle filling stations at our schools, and so those are coming in and will be installed as soon as we are able to get that done. But throughout the process, I've been monitoring it, and sometimes we run into issues with when it comes to the supplies, just the availability of the supplies and be able to provide the amounts that are needed to support the school system. So it's tough when you have 10, 12 vendors, but they all have like a real fragment of the necessary supplies, and maybe not exactly the ones that are needed. And so we've gone through that process, and I think we've been able to ensure that the safety items are procured. The other large, probably the most, I don't have the exact amounts, but a lot of the funding is going to be spent on technology.
Yeah.
And so we have those laptops and the tablets and so forth on order and coming in. And so we anticipate that by January we will see those available to be distributed to our to our students. And again, that's also subject to some of the timing issues and the availability, the capability of the vendors to provide the amounts that we are seeking. So that's where we are. But again, we've provided that information before into the legislature to just to let them know that this is where it's targeted. This is where we are going to be encumbering the funds, and I think at the end of the day, it'll mostly be in the the PPEs and technology when all is said and done.
Is there any updates that you have? Because we did have Lieutenant Governor on Tuesday, and he was talking about the discussions he's been having with you and the private schools about expanded internet access and these different learning centers at the library.
Yes, we've been, it always pains me to come back here and say that we're almost there. But as of Monday, I was able to execute the memorandum of understanding and with the governor's office, which really, that was the document that needed to we needed to make sure all the information was updated and provided in terms of how this process would work based on what we were hearing from USDOE. So we needed USDOE to provide some final guidance, and then we needed Department of Administration and the Budget Office at Adelou to basically work to set up the necessary accounts and processes for drawing down the money and making it available for use so that we could go forward with procurement. So when all that information was finalized and provided, I was able to execute the MOU. That then becomes the basis for us to move forward with the procurement. So today we're working on finalizing, just a final review by all parties on the it's an indefinite quantity bid that will be put out for bid for the vendors to respond to. And so that's going to its final approvals today, and we hope to initiate that once we get that done. But we're ready to go. I think the Lieutenant Governor would like an opportunity, as we wrap up these documents, to provide a more public briefing and maybe articulate exactly what we hope to accomplish with the home internet access program that they are funding and supporting.
All right. Well, thank you so much, John. Anything else you needed to get out to the community?
Well, I know that there's a lot of questions about vaccinations and so forth. So I know that we were able to help facilitate a visit to Okudu High School yesterday for public health to go and take a look at the facility as an opportunity to do some of the initial vaccinations for our frontline employees. So I did get a call as to whether we would be supportive, and of course I said, look, the way out of this situation. So go ahead, show up. We'll make sure that the facility is available, and if you can facilitate vaccinations, we'd be happy to definitely support that activity. So my understanding, and I'm not sure whether it's finalized or not, but looking at Thursday to conduct the vaccinations. These are for frontline employees on the from the healthcare perspective. So looking at our healthcare and medical professionals to receive that first line of defense, that vaccination, and then participating in the discussion about how that will be further expanded. We did submit information to the governor's office. They had asked about educators who were going to return for face-to-face instruction and staff. And so we gave them a sense of the numbers so that they can start to plan. But we certainly hope that the vaccination strategy, will move forward and enable us to have another way to solve and resolve, the current situation. We believe that when we do reopen, that we have the safety parameters in place to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 as guided by CDC and based on the experiences of other school districts. But that's just a mitigation and prevention strategy. I think that we have, without a vaccination being available. Now that the vaccines are getting their approval, we hope that will again, be added to the strategy and be done in a very timely manner so that we can continue to assure our parents, our students, and our teachers and employees that they're getting the attention they need to be able to be safe in school. So we look forward to working with the governor's office on that strategy. Other than that, if I could only just to say one more time to the community, when we do reopen, it's not, we aren't going to be forcing parents and students to come back for face-to-face instruction. This is only for those who feel comfortable and who sign up for face-to-face. The other models of learning, including hard copy and including online, the online platform, the online learning model will still be available through the rest of the semester. So if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to sign up for face-to-face. But if you do sign up, then we're ready, and we're getting ourselves ready to have you back. For teachers, again, once we get the numbers sorted out, we'll be able to provide even more information. And we are working with our school leadership teams this week to answer any final questions and concerns to make sure that we're communicating with our educators who are going to be there, to serve our kids. So with that, I just wanted to make sure that, parents always come back and go, don't make, we're not going to school. Well, we're not forcing you to, but there are some parents who do feel that their kids need to be back in school, for valid reasons. And we want to do so in a safe way. And we're planning to do so in a safe way. Okay. So I just want to reiterate that for the community who's listening.
All right. Thanks a lot, John. Thanks for the weekly progress report. I guess we'll be checking back in with you again next Wednesday.
Yeah, next Wednesday will be after the 22nd, so we'll have a final decision, and we'll be able to tell you exactly what we're doing and what the plan is with the board's support and concurrence.
Okay, thanks. Have a safe weekend.
Same to you.
Okay.
Bye, guys.